they are organizing for Bernie. They are doing the things that need to be done in order to get this man elected. And so I'm going to go ahead and leave it to you and Lauren to talk about what people can do, how people can start doing the work for Bernie, doing the work to get him elected, doing the work to get his name out there to people who may not know him, doing the work to get the young people to figure out how they can help, how they can get involved, because a lot of people in 2016 didn't really know how. And it's 2019 and we don't have a lot of time before the March 3rd primary. So how do we do it?
No pressure. No, it's actually really so much less like complicated than what you might think. So I wanted to talk to you guys know like Fiorella and Lauren and I are friends, and of course Johnny on the engineering board, and we roll together for Bernie a lot and do various things. And so it's kind of the idea is like, how do we help people feel empowered and feel connected to Bernie, especially like those of us in California, which, they're moving their way across the country, the campaign, putting their, staffers in place and things like that. But of course, like, we want to get started, right? And of course, we know that our primary is March 3rd this time around, which is, 3 months earlier. And it's the gift and the curse, right? We are already out of time. But also, we have an opportunity to lead, right? So when Bernie wins California, we're sending a message to the entire nation that, the liberals and the centrists and the Democrats have been saying, like, we're going to get behind anybody, right? So maybe it'll be Kamala. We're going to get behind anybody, whoever the people want. Maybe it'll be Beto, right? We're gonna get behind anybody, whoever the people want,
Don't
right?
speak it into existence.
But we have a front runner on our hands that they're ignoring, of course, the hypocrisy. And so we want to make sure that people know that there's opportunities right now to get connected to Bernie. So a couple things, and if you guys follow my personal Facebook page, you've seen me talking about this already. But one of the easiest things to do is start canvassing. You don't necessarily need, a list of addresses, of names, and party affiliation to do that. All you really need is a simple handout and a Bernie shirt. And I should have left my buttons on because we were out talking to college students at Pasadena City College this morning. And just, there's several people like really ready to get involved and they just don't know necessarily how. So part of it is just going out and talking to people. Take a little rally sign with you, or the resources that I've been using until we get some more from the campaign for 2020 are at feeltheburn.org. There's issue-based flyers, digital and printable. Scroll to the bottom for the entire printable kit. They have ink-friendly versions. They have Spanish language versions. And so pick the issues that you think are going to relate to your community. There's a great About Bernie overview that is super helpful. And just kind of go out and, my strategy is, hi, do you have a second to talk about Bernie Sanders? I swear. and people will say yes. Like, so a lot of people have been, you know how you could tell, I figured this out today. You know how you could tell, like, a real diehard Bernie supporter? They go straight for the sign-up sheet. They don't care necessarily about a sticker or a button or a, you know what I'm talking about, Lauren? Like, they go straight for that sign-up sheet, like, how do I help? And you got these people that want to help. So one of the first things that I've been doing is making sure they're signed up at berniesanders.com/volunteer. Easy one, right? There's a Bernie Sanders volunteer form. Also, stay connected. If you have a good conversation with someone, exchange information. Plan to go out and do this again together maybe. Or plan to make a little community meeting, Everybody bring a friend that supports Bernie and start talking about, well, maybe next time, instead of just walking around with flyers, maybe we contact the school and ask them where we could set up a table, right? So step by step, you get a little more organized. You have another meeting in your community. Now your meeting's getting a little bigger. Maybe you need a community center or you meet at a restaurant or something like that. A call to action right now is the April 27th. So he did this whole announcement tour. That's what all those rallies were across the country over the last couple of weeks, was his announcement tour. Now he's asking us all to host house parties again, this time for the 2020 kickoff event. He's going to send a video to the party hosts that's going to talk to us about, thank you for the announcement tour, and it'll give us some next steps, and it'll be super galvanizing, and maybe there'll be special speakers and stuff like that. And I know personally of several groups that are planning to already do like some phone banking or some sort of outreach around the 27th. But what we can do is we can post later, right, the links for how to sign up to host an event, or how to sign up to attend an event on the 27th. Or you can also reach out to us individually, and we can help you make that happen also.
Awesome. That's a lot of information.
I know.
And so just so you guys know, Michelle's going to have other segments where she's going to talk about step by step how to do the things, how to get involved, and how to start, let's say, a get together. I know people were starting house parties before, of just a phone bank, and to just spread the Bernie message around. And I know we talked about canvassing in colleges, in all of the colleges, as many as possible, and forming a democratic club, student-led, of course. And when we do form these democratic clubs with the help of an admin, whether it's a teacher or someone that works there, we are able to use the resources of the school, which cuts off a lot of the funding pressure that we have as volunteers, and also helps the campaign out, and also provides student volunteers who don't necessarily work like we all do, and so have more time and are connected there constantly. So it's a win-win for that. And
yeah, because, truthfully, one of the biggest things you could potentially do right now is find a little location in your community, whether it's somebody's comfortable dining room or a community center or a spot at a community college where you can have little meetings, you can set up a phone bank. If you have a place where you can come together and really talk about these things, you're already like setting yourself up for success.
Awesome. And I wanted to go ahead and ask Lauren a couple questions.
Yeah.
Unless you had.
No, I spieled. I said what I needed to say.
Lauren, you are, as known to me, an expert on voter registration and voting issues.
I am deputized, yes.
Yes. Okay. So I want to know what your experience with voter registration in 2016 was.
So we ran a little shop called Team Bernie LA. Throwback to that. And we had a voter registration operation that was happening out of there. We had a couple of people who would go out into the community and who would try to register voters, and were largely successful. We had a lot of different people on the ground just kind of verifying people's registration status, trying to see who was registered to vote and whether everything was up to date. One of the things that we found were people frequently who thought that they were registered to vote, and it turns out that they're not registered to vote, much to their dismay, since they know that they're registered to vote, which was the beginning of the Great Purge of 2016. Specifically in Los Angeles, we have a history of pretty shoddy election integrity for various reasons, but it begs the question of how is it that somebody who has registered to vote, who has not changed their address, how do they just suddenly disappear from the rolls? In large swaths, like entire blocks of people who were previously registered, and not necessarily just Democrats, but no party preference and Republican as well. I had a person on a college campus once who was a registered Republican for 40 years and had never missed an election, and suddenly in 2016 she's no longer registered to vote, and she's not moved. She's been in the same location for 25 years, and she was nice enough to sit down and speak with us, but it was something that was really concerning, because if it's not following a party line, if it's not following any particular rhyme or reason, it kind of makes you wonder what the heck is going on within the registrar.
Especially in an open primary state.
Right, and especially in a state where you have the option to be no party preference, where that's a protected right, where you can still participate in primaries. It's really concerning. And, if you're eligible to vote and you have registered to vote, you should not ever be denied your right to vote. So the fact that that is something that we saw on a regular basis with the provisional ballots, etc., it was just an eye-opening experience, and I'm hoping that we're not going to experience the same thing again this time around. But
so particularly the things that stood in the way of people not being able to vote were the fact that they were registered, but then all of a sudden they were not on the voter rolls.
Correct. Yeah, there was a lot of purging, and we saw the most recent purge in 2018 during our primary season in 2018, where we had 200,000 people within Los Angeles County alone that were prevented from being able to cast a vote because their names magically disappeared from the rolls. And they call it a printing error. They still have not given a justification as to why. And the registrar has owned up to it. They go, yeah, we had a printing error and these people weren't able to vote. These things happen. Oops.
And what about the people that, and I recall this very well in 2016, were given the wrong ballot or were given, like, I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but they were given provisional ballots, say, when they were supposed to
Correct.
get no party preference or in the regular ballot.
I think it's a lot having to do with people's ability to advocate for themselves and knowing what their rights are. Specifically knowing when you register as no party preference, what does that mean for how you cast your vote? And what that means is that you need to request a specific ballot and you need to know your rights before you even walk into that booth, which is asking a lot considering Americans' ability to keep their rights in their minds, you know? But like, it's asking a lot, but you do need to know when you register as something that's not within the party, and even when you register as something within the party, you need to know what the process looks like. You are entitled, when you are a no party preference voter, to receive a full eligible ballot. You do not have to vote provisionally in a democratic election, and you are entitled to cast your vote until, especially within the general election, for any candidate that you choose. And there's nothing that should stop you from being able to cast a full vote. That is not necessarily the case with what we've seen in our elections in the last 4 years. It's not exclusive to no party preference. Like I was saying, the purge has happened amongst, you know, all of the parties that have existed. But no party preference really did get a foul shake in 2016. It caused a little bit of a chaos because it's supposed to be, you know, a lot of Bernie's supporters have been independents, for example, in the 2016 primary. So a lot of those people were having that right inhibited, just based off of not necessarily having the right information and insisting upon the right practice. I think that does also tie in a lot with poll worker training, with the type of thoroughness of those trainings. And I know that there's many poll workers who feel that they've gotten a really great training and a really great experience, but there's some also that have heard that it's not nearly as thorough as it needs to be, and that the support at the polling stations is not where it needs to be. And that's something that needs to change from the state level.
Question?
Yeah.
What do you think about, I know that the DMV is doing automatic voter reg now. Is that going to help solve any of this, or?
It probably will help streamline the application process because the current application process sources from the DMV anyway, so having it all under the same jurisdiction is probably going to make that process easier and faster, which benefits things. I think what's really going to help is the pre-registration when you're 16, 17 years old. That goes into effect immediately upon your 18th birthday, and if you are 18 years old on the date of the actual election that you're voting in, regardless of when you actually register to vote, you are going to automatically on your 18th birthday be registered as you signed up. So I think that's really, there's an opportunity in that, where we have seen a lot of youth, this is going to be for people who are turning 18 years old in 2020. Can you imagine? Like, the people who get to cast their vote for Bernie Sanders on their 18th birthday, you know, in that very first election, people are going to want to do that. There's an entire movement of kids who are going to be activated and eligible, and we just have to find a way to tap in with that.
Absolutely. And just really quick, like, what else can we do to prevent what happened in 2016 besides having more of our people as poll workers? What else can we as Bernie supporters and as progressives do to help make sure that the same mistakes of not registering on time, not just in this state, but in other states that don't have open primaries?
I have a point on the registration date. California practices conditional voter registration now, which is different from what we had in 2016. 2016, you had to register by a certain date within 15 days of the election. You no longer have to do that at this point. You can register any day up until election day, but within that 15-day period, you will have to cast a provisional ballot. But you are then, after you've cast that provisional ballot, you are then registered to vote. So you don't have to do the registration process again. You cast your provisional and you're already in the system. So it's a newer kind of evolution in California voting. I got enthusiastic and I jumped ahead to your question.
But wouldn't provisional ballots then still risk not being counted?
They do still risk not being counted, and that's an internal problem within the registrar, is what qualifies a ballot to be discounted. But eventually you do have the option, even when you cast a provisional ballot, to track your vote. So you can track it from beginning to end and see when it's counted. And if it's not counted, you can dispute why it wasn't counted. And there's options, you know, to argue about whether or not your vote was actually cast. In terms of being able, this is the barrier to being able to vote by having a deadline that says no, but you cannot vote at all. I would rather have provisional votes pouring in from people who decided that they wanted to vote at the last minute than to have them be told that they can't participate in the process. I think it's definitely a move forward. Everybody, I mean, the best move possible would be automatic voter registration, and nobody has to wonder about, whether they can vote or not, because it's a given right, But up until that point, this is another step on that path. And I think it's a good thing.
It is a good thing. I just think I'm like scared, I just think it would be easier to like get everybody, make sure they're registered, but at least if they don't
imagine that you're canvassing in the GOTV time, and you've got people who have never voted in any election ever, and they're eligible, and they're like, yeah, I'm on board with what you're saying, I want to do all of these things, but they can't vote because they aren't registered to vote. That person can still then go and cast their ballot. Right. And they can at least have that, and you've now activated a person by whatever pitch you've given them that causes them to get out and actually do it. You've activated that person, and that person is likely to be a routine voter going forward.
And that happens. I just want to anecdotally mention the time we were in Nevada canvassing before the caucuses. Yep. Remember that? And we knocked on a door, and the person had not known that it was caucus day, but was totally a Bernie supporter and had never had any idea of how to do this or why it was important. But when they heard Bernie needs us to do this, we freaking saw that person later that day at their caucus, lined up and ready to support Bernie for the first time in their lives.
Yep. And that's the thing. Our movement right now is about breaking that apathy down. Yeah. It's about breaking down this conception that your vote doesn't matter, even though your vote may not be counted. Your vote still matters tremendously. You must fight for your right to vote, and you must not allow them to inhibit it. We have to fight that. We have to fight that. And being able to turn people out, having the option now to activate people even while, the election day is right around the corner, that's a big step. And especially in a populated state like California, that's something where if you encounter, newly eligible people who have never had the opportunity to vote before, this is the first time, you've got major potential with that. So.
And before we go, one more thing. What do you think we can do as far as a lot of people complaining about transportation or not being able to find their polling place?
Preparation. A lot of it comes down to finding people with vehicles, running carpools, running van pools, running
community organizing.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Getting onto a megaphone and rolling down the street going, hey, we have an election coming up in 24 hours. Do you need a ride? I don't know what it's going to look like, but we need to start organizing that process. Definitely on college campuses, for example, where they do have a large number of people that are registered in that specific area, that needs to be deployed. People need to know where their locations are, and where, even if they're not at home, you can still cast a vote.
So I just want to drill that down a little bit and say make some suggestions, because before I was a full-time activist, offering rides to the polls is something I used to do just as a volunteer on my own, and I would post on Craigslist. You know how some people feel some type of way about that, but I've always found it to be useful. But also, no, seriously, but if that's not your thing, make up a little flyer and post it on the college campus. Bring it to senior centers, right, and other types of homes. Talk to nursing homes about hey, these people are invalid, but can they vote? How do they vote? How can I help? There's so many communities that are seemingly inaccessible that we can help get to the polls. Or Lauren said, literally just going down the street, knocking on doors, talking to people about ride sharing for voting. I mean, this is the core of community organizing.
Talk to your coworkers. Let them know that they're entitled at the beginning or the end of each shift. They've got 2 hours where they are entitled to paid time off where they can go and cast a vote. Because a lot of people don't know. And a lot of people don't go and do it because they're working. The working class needs the money. We don't have time.
And we need the working class to vote.
Right. So if you know these things, you need to inform the people around you. You need to, word of mouth is the best defense on that. And know your rights. Know what you're entitled to. 2 hours paid time off.
I'd also add that we need outreach to local Latin communities or communities that may not speak our language, whether they're Asian, Latin, or whatever they are, and have them feel comfortable doing this.
And the registrar has voter registration forms in how many languages?
I think it's like
12 or
12.
15,
Yeah, there's
something?
like upwards of 12,
So,
I think.
you know, here in LA County, the registrar is in Norwalk, and you can go and they'll give you a big box of voter registration forms, you know, and so there's so much more
You can
to
request
talk
up to
about.
50 now.
Really?
They've edited it. Yeah, it's
We
now.
did too many.
Yeah, well, they track it a little bit. So now they're like, you know, anything over, you can get more than 50, but anything over 50, you have to declare why. Like, they ask you why. So,
Interesting.
Isn't it?
Awesome.
So, if I can just plug how you can reach us. Of
course, yes.
Lauren and I are both available to come talk to your group or to text or email about any of this. You can reach us at organizersforbernieca@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you,
us.
Lauren. And you can find them on Facebook as well. They're always on there. But thanks, guys, for watching. I will see you soon. Convo out.